you pray to see. Let me fulfill the need and make it all come true. I've got a show for you. There's a real hero in this room. My eyes alone will shine in this electric glow. You know the victims will be forgotten by tomorrow. My
Good evening, space travelers, and welcome to Death and Gloria's home here on a spinning space station somewhere up among the stars, away from the maddening antics of Earth. Welcome, Happy New Year. It's my first stream of the year. Hooray! And we have friends with us here today. We have Etienne here, who's on our screen right now. I should be looking this way, actually. Hello. And
wow, I have such a delay.
Oh, that's all right. And Dan's in there too. Dan, say hello and wave your hands around.
Hello.
Yeah. So we've decided that we would come together. Actually, we stole this idea off Igor. Is it Igor from the music marketing mixer? Came up with this idea first of getting a bunch of bands together who have the same kind of theme in their influences. Theirs were high fantasy. And we weren't part of that club, so we started our own. And this one is sci-fi. So we're going to be, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking to different folks about the influences they have that come from sci-fi. I've put it down as content creators because it might be fashion people, it could be DJs, it could be musicians, writers, whatever, whatever's the pleasure, really. I suppose I should start off by saying hello to the folks who have joined us. Rick is on the Twitch. Rick, and a big thanks to Bjorn, who's also on the Twitch, for doing my wedding rings. Oh yeah, Bjorn has made me and my fella custom black wedding rings, and they arrived today. There's Alice on Facebook as well. Hello. They're all coming in. It's great. Yeah, so we're kind of we have no real structure for tonight. We just thought we'd do it. We'd get together and just have fun and see where it takes us. There's Abby who's joined us as well on Twitch. So Dan, why don't you tell folks at home about, seeing you're on the screen right now, do you want to just tell the folks at home who you are and what it is you do with your band?
Hello. My name is Daniele, actually, because I'm Italian. I play guitar and sing in Gramma Vedetta, which is a sci-fi team band. We do like some sort of stoner rock / grunge / whatever we got inspired with, and we are a trio. We have 2 albums out.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Etienne, do you want to tell us about? Come on in, Etienne. Come on in. The water's great. Come and tell us all about you.
Yes. All right, so I'm getting a massive delay, so I may cut you guys off, or there might be an awkward pause, but whatever. So I'm Etienne. I play in a space disco synth metal band called Alpha Bootis. We're from Montreal, Canada. We started doing synthwave in 2017, and then we kind of transitioned into a full rock metal prog band when came the time to play live. And now we're just writing science fiction epics into music and building a whole universe around that. So that's what I do.
Amazing. For anyone out there who doesn't know what I do, I basically do the same thing. I write sci-fi stories about the end of humanity from start to finish, and every album has its own comic book, and every story ends with humanity dying off completely, because there's too many of us. There's quite frankly, there's quite a lot.
It's kind of happening now.
Yeah, well, my first album, I did destroy everyone with a miseries virus that was purposely designed and let loose among the population. So, maybe I can see into the future. I don't know. My second album is about a fella who destroys the world through a set of minor admin errors. He sets off all the nuclear warheads and kills everyone. So you better hope that I'm not psychic, or we're all in really big trubs after the second album comes out.
Yeah, it's kind of like that cattle decapitation album that said bring back the plague, and then the plague came 6 months after.
Yes. Well, in fairness, it was only a matter of time from between a metal band saying something like that and it actually happening. I think it's been well overdue, to be fair.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, as far as seeing into the future, if my band's vision of the future comes real, it's we destroy Earth and have to find other places to live among the stars. So that's not too bad. It's not the end of the human race. It's just the end of the world.
So let's just talk about your stories there. How far have you got so far with your storyline?
Okay, so we started with just songs, and then the titles were Jump to Alpha Bootis, Wormhole Gas Bar, and Circling the Belt of Orion. And then I just kind of made this little story about a crew like going to Alpha Bootis, which is the star Arcturus, its other name, and then going through a wormhole and emerging in the Belt of Orion, and that was like the first EP's story. Then the second album was like we had a song that sounded like Amon Amarth that we called Space Vikings, and so we started building like this whole thing about space Vikings, and like we tied the stories to the first EP, and that was it. For the next album we're doing, we're working with like two friends who are writers and a friend who's an astronomer, and we're kind of like taking those silly stories we made in the first two albums and developing them into like a full universe, which will include the space Vikings. It will include the wormholes and stuff like that. But right now we're focusing on a single planet called Eunomia, which we touched on the first two records, and we're just like talking about how the people on this planet live and how they manage to like they started as refugees from Earth that was like dying, and now they're kind of having similar problems that the ones we have on Earth, where the people at the top are taking more and more money and the people at the bottom have nothing left, and it's kind of tearing everything apart. We're doing some heavy world building right now. The songs are written, so we're trying to like write the story that goes with the songs, which is kind of a mistake because now we have so many plot holes to fill.
I know your pain. Don't worry, I've been there. I've been there myself.
But yeah, so basically we have like a 17-song album that's going to come out later, like way later this year or next year. That's going to be, every song's going to come with like a podcast or a short story or a series of poem, and all that together is going to create the whole storyline. So the characters are all going through stuff. It's kind of like a revolution story that like the planet is fucked because the rich are taking too much stuff, and now the people have kind of discovered a big secret, a big lie that I won't spoil, of course. And that like triggers revolution, and we look into the price of revolution, how it sometimes doesn't go the way we want it to go, and like what goes into, you know, making a society more just. And so it's like, I'm a big fan of the humanities. I studied social sciences in college, so I'm like trying to put that into science fiction because I think that's what it's good for. Because the engineering part, I'm no good. So yeah, that's the Alpha Bootis universe so far. We just released a small like kind of side, not a side project, but it's not part of the main story. It's a short story called Stowaway Ants, and it's about ants who like snuck on a human spaceship and ended up colonizing distant planets that way and beating us to the punch and becoming a multi-planet species. So that was lots of fun to work on. I wrote that like because an ant was stuck in my car as I was traveling from North Carolina to New Jersey, which is like 800, I think it's 900 kilometers. And like the ant was there with us for the whole travel, and it was like, imagine how big that feels for an ant that is so small. And like that's how space travel makes me feel, and that went from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have something so small be part of your story. I mean, that's a good idea. It is exactly like space travel. It being so small. I've just put your music in the background. I do apologize, folks, if it got a bit loud there because I didn't know what I was doing. That's all I can tell you about that. So what song are we listening to here at the moment?
Oh, so yeah, that is a Plasmic Wastes of Alkalurops. So Alkylurps is the name of a star that is near Alpha Bootis. It's in the same constellation, and that constellation is called the Herdsman, or Bootis in Latin. And it is Alkylurps is the herdsman's stick with which he hits the wayward sheep. So it's just like that song is about kind of the ants traveling towards their destination. It's a small instrumental that's well, you can hear how it sounds, so I won't describe it. But it was really fun to make. If you're interested in how I made that song, I actually live streamed the whole project on our Facebook page. So I will drop a link to the making of that song. It's like long and rambly because I'm making music live, but it was really fun to just expose myself in that way, just like be vulnerable and like, okay, I'm actually going to like produce music live with an audience.
Did you get? I mean, I kind of want to touch on the making process after we've gone through the story, but I think I'll just write that down as a note to ask later on. About
sure.
the making process. If you've got any questions or comments out there in internet land, just drop them in the chat. Why not? Let us know you're there. It's fine. I see Dante has joined us. Hello, sir. Hello. Welcome. Bjorn has got all sorts of questions, and quite frankly, sir, I'll answer all your gear questions later on, probably on Facebook Messenger, sir. Yes, indeed. How many chapters into your story are you?
So right now we've got so for the story of the next album is each song is basically a chapter, so we've got 17 chapters laid out. We've written one like that's completed, and we're kind of realizing we've had some flaws in our world building, so right now we're doing a lot of world building. We're using World Anvil, which is a really cool online tool to just kind of create a Wikipedia of your universe as you're writing it.
Sorry, what is that called? Because I obviously need that.
It's called World Anvil. It's kind of like, it's made for people who want to world build and like share those worlds with people, and maybe have like Dungeons and Dragons games in their world or whatnot. So it creates like a wiki. You create articles and you can link them together, and it's a really fun platform, and it gives us structure. And so oh, don't worry, Eyes of a Hunter. Those jokes are fun. I tend to do weird double entendres in English because in French those words don't mean the same thing. But going back to the story, so we've got like a couple of chapters written down like in their actual form, but we know each of the story beats we have to go through. Like we know that this song is about this character meeting this other character. We just have to write that story. And sometimes we'll have like journal entries from the characters, so we can like do the, because when you're trying to communicate a whole universe, you have to do a lot of exposition, but you don't want it to feel like two characters are talking about stuff they already know for the benefit of the audience. So our main character comes from like another planet and is new to that city of Eunomia, so she's discovering the planet with the reader and with the listener. So far it's been really fun, like writing with other writers. Yeah, I have chat on another screen, so I can read all of your jokes. So yeah, that's like we're 17 chapters in terms of mapping out the storyline. Now it's the actual, writing the prose and writing the poems and all that stuff that's taking us more time.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I don't want to get too far into the processes going past the actual story just yet, because I want to get Dan in to tell us his
Of course.
universe and story, and then we'll go back on to the next section when we cover that. So Dan, tell us about yours. Have you got your helmet with you?
No, I didn't finish yet. Yeah. I finished one verse and it was like, come on, you can do better. But now I need to like take some lesson before I can start again with helmets. Well, the Gramma Vedetta universe is not well defined yet. I don't have like a plan to create a universe as for now. I see mostly the development of the universe as I write the albums. So my approach on the sci-fi towards my music is mostly like, in a way, I tell stories. I can do an example. So Star Trek, which is one of the best series I like the most, it started with a series of episodes, and during the years became like a complete universe. They added some stuff, and it became what we know so far. I'm not saying I'm going to compare.
You're writing the next Star. That's what I heard. You're writing the next Star Trek.
No. I'm saying like I'm building the universe as I progress. For now, I'm using mostly sci-fi and sci-fi settings to describe what happens in real life, and I'm building like a little bit of scenery. We have this idea of Gramma Vedetta, which is a council of elders that keep the balance between the good and wrong. And our mascot, which doesn't have a name, so if one can suggest a name for the mascot we have, which is the lady with the helmet, is can say one of the agent of Gramma Vedetta, sent to, in this case, Earth, to help the population to keep the balance between good and bad. This is the concept behind Gramma Vedetta itself, but I don't speak about this in the songs. The songs are mostly story setting in different environments, which are not earthly environment. That's it.
Oh, nice. So I guess we can go on to the process of making things, because we've all done it in a very different way. And Dan, you have just released an album, haven't you?
Yes, in August 2020. Yes. Yeah, we released this EP, which it was supposed to be a full length, but the lockdown and everything. So we decided to put something out anyway. So we got these 3/4 songs ready since before the pandemic. So we decided to wrap that up. And this is a small journey. The first song is Hang Up My Boot, which is the opener. Is the one who links the previous album, which was more earthly, based on earthly stories, which links more the idea of a travel. In this case, the travel of a person which not happy or what happens in his life. He tried to find another planet, another place. Everyone's looking for another place, and that we end up in the second song, which is the actual travel to the other place, and this is going to develop in the album we are now starting to recording with the band, which will be a full length, but with 9 songs, which will develop the idea further.
Yeah. So you said a full length album at 9 songs. Did you say 9 songs?
Yes.
Is that a full length album?
Yes. I mean,
that is my question.
it stays in LP, and the songs are quite long. So
what makes an album? I guess I suppose. I don't know.
Asks to several people. I think the length, if it's under 30 minutes, it can be an EP. But it depends also from the band. If you take one album of the Slayers, for example, which are LP, they are like 33 minutes.
Yeah.
So I guess an album is something that has a beginning and an end and lasts more than half an hour. So if we are releasing on a CD, you can release an album of 4 hours. If you're releasing an LP, you have a lot of money to release a double LP, or you have to cap at 40 minutes if you want to have decent quality.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just interested because we have had a chat before on one of my other talk shows for the library, but I want you to talk about your game. Essentially, talk about your game.
So yeah, this is about the idea of Gramma Vedetta being a spaceship and having agents. So I transformed one of my pet projects. I'm a software engineer, so sometimes I have pet projects, and I basically rebranded one of my pet projects, which was a browser game, into the Gramma Vedetta universe. So the game is called Scratch. And basically, what you have to do is to using your mouse or your finger, if you're using an iPhone or a phone or a tablet, you have to protect the spaceship, the mothership, which is the one who has the resemblance of the element from the enemies that then flies around her. I think I can share the link in the chat.
Yeah, do that. There's an awful lot of chat going on in the Twitch chat room. If you're out there in internet land, we're on Facebook and Twitch. Come over and have a chat. Who was it? Rick has told us that Bell Witch have an album with one song on it, and it's 80 minutes long. 80 minutes long. What a cracker! And Curtis has joined us now as well. Hello, Curtis. This is all your fault, sir. All your fault. I suppose I should say we all met up on the Music Marketing Mixer Facebook group, which Curtis has done with his PR company, and we will be talking about all of the good stuff that they've done very soon. So thank you, sir, for that group. And I should say that we can hear you typing. When you type, it's very loud.
Me?
Oh,
yeah, you. Both
no,
of you.
that is me. I'm very sorry.
No worries. I was gonna type it into the chat on Zoom to tell you not to, but then I would have had to type onto my microphone at the same time.
All right, I'm gonna make sure I mute when I type.
So Dan, you had a link. Did you have a link? Did you get the link?
Yes, I posted it in the Facebook.
In the Facebook,
thing. I'm gonna join the Twitch now.
That's all right.
Can I comment if I'm not registered?
That's all right. I can copy it over to the Twitch channel. We're all good. I think the majority of folks are watching on Twitch, which is great. We're up to 9 viewers, folks. One more, and I'll hit a personal best on how many people have been watching at the same time on my show. On my channel. Double digits. Yes, please. So Dan did this game, which we have now put in the chat for anyone who is out there and wants to play it. It's a very fun game, I have to say, and it's very well done with all the spaceships and stuff and things as well. Etienne, well, you're back on the camera, so I was going to ask you about how you release your albums, because I think you mentioned something about a 17-song album was coming. Did you say that? Yeah.
So the reason it's 17 songs is because we started with we write a lot of songs. So we started and I take the songs and I go, okay, these can make a story together, and but now I want a villain song for the villain of the story, and now we write a villain song, and then we want a love song between these two characters who are in love, and then we want a mourning song for that character that dies, and then it kind of snowballs. So yeah, it's gonna be 17 minutes, but 17 songs, but it's probably staying under an hour, because we tend to write 3 minutes and a half songs. Also, there are the 4 first songs of the record all link up with one another seamlessly, so they could be a single song, but long tracks don't do well in the streaming age because you get one play for a 12-minute track. I think you get 2 on Spotify for a 12-minute track, but if I split it up in 4 parts, I get 4 streams. And the way we're going to be releasing that is, since we have like all of those stories, we're going to do like kind of like a season. So every month we're going to release 1 or 2 songs with the story that goes with it, and then after a while we're going to release like a pre-order for the whole album, and then if you want like the last parts of the stories, you have to get the album or wait for the album to drop and listen on Spotify and stuff. But yeah, so Dante says like a Final Fantasy soundtrack. Yeah, it's kind of one song is one scene in the story, and then all of the stories kind of tied to the songs, and you get like the story is like the core emotional stuff of the scene, and then for the action and the descriptions and all that stuff, the dialogue, you have to read the stories or listen to the podcast, because we're trying to make it like a web theater experience, kind of.
When you say people are going to get the story, what format do they get the story in?
So we're going to release the stories as like on our website, kind of like as a blog. There's also going to be the World Anvil, which we can make public at some point, and people will be able to read the stories there and dig deeper into like the lore. That's because I have had to do like planetary mechanics and build whole cultures for this story that won't get featured in the stories, so I'm going to share that with people as well. But at the end, we want to print it in a book with the cover arts. Like each song is going to have an artwork, and then we are going to do a book with like a bunch of stories of poems, of small theater plays, and artwork for the album. But we're going to release that like one song a month for like 12 or 15 months. So it's going to be a long journey.
That's pretty good. I should just kind of throw in a bit of the business side from me, that I actually work for a theater venue. So if you come up with some short series of plays or anything like that, I have a live stream channel that deals with that kind of content. And also we work with theater producers, 2 companies we work with here in London, and we could produce some actual live theater stuff for small audience sizes.
That would be great.
Yeah. Our biggest room is 100 people.
So that.
Yeah. So yeah. Anybody else out there in internet land's got some theater to throw at us? Do it.
Well, Eyes of a Hunter does CAD stuff and 3D models. That's cool. I'm really happy because one of my roommates who's studying to become an engineer is buying a laser cutter and a 3D printer, like in a few months. And well, no, he's bought them. He's going to receive them in a few months, because yay, international shipping. So we're going to be able to like make special, unique merch items for the band that we're going to be able to manufacture ourselves. So we're going to have to make like action figures or stuff like that won't cost us like $50 a piece.
Yeah, I did that actually. Last Christmas I decided that I wanted to try and do a Death in Gloria snow globe with the wolf head as the inside part, and I had to pay someone on Fiverr to do the drawing, and then a friend of mine 3D printed it, and it was not worth the cost to actually make them. So it got as far as getting the model done, and that was it. And then I couldn't get it's like a snow globe. The globe itself wasn't going to be glass because it would be too heavy and expensive, so like who'd want that? So I was just going to make it so the snow wasn't snow, but it was like fire, colors of fire and debris and stuff, so it looked like it had developed around it, kind of thing. But you can't, like a snow globe, you can't send with water in it, right?
No, you can't.
You
No.
can't, because what's the point? So you'd have to, like, people would have to put it together themselves, and it all got such a thing. So there is one Death and Glory snow globe in existence without any water in it.
It's the forbidden prototype.
Yeah, right. And I can say that Eyes of the Hunter, do put in your links in the chat, because he has made my wedding rings, and he also 3D printed the ring box that they came in. And there's a
That's
nice
great.
black rose on the top of it. It was very cool. Very cool indeed.
Because one of my biggest gripes with the music industry right now is that if you want to make money as a musician, you have to sell like premium products, and the most common premium product is either like very well packaged CDs or vinyls. And like I'm saying this without any like hate towards the people who enjoy vinyl, but vinyl is toxic, shitty for the environment, and like impossible to recycle or dispose of. So as a musician, I don't want to be able like to have to base my business model on like literally pieces of PVC that will degrade and give people cancer for the next thousands of years. Which is why I'm really happy that I can like make premium products out of wood, out of plastic that is not degrading into the environment and leaking toxic chemicals, or stuff like that, and build like eco-friendly premium products. Exactly. Yeah, the PVC. The problem is like whenever you spin the vinyl in a room, it releases like tons of microparticulates that are very, very bad for you. But yeah, so like the 3D printing and laser cutting of wood and stuff is going to allow us to make like cool stuff that is nice to have, but will not destroy the environment in bulk, in large sizes. Because I write sci-fi about us finding a new planet because we destroyed this one. I don't want to contribute to destroying this one.
Oh, I hear you. I'm just going to say hello to Enrico and Ikitan, who has joined us on Facebook. Hello. For the Death and Glory model, I'd never produced CDs or vinyl. I haven't done that at all. I did do a short run, 100 pieces of custom USBs, of which I have none in my studio. I don't even have my comic here in my studio. Anyway, so I made USBs on the purpose that people could reuse them. So my idea was that people would take them to work, and they have the Earth Star is the blue cross thing that I've got. So they were the shape of that, and people can reuse them and all the rest. The problem was they were really expensive, and they broke very easily, because if you held on to the plastic surround too hard, the rubber surround, you'd pull the USB out like if you didn't if you weren't careful about just taking the two things apart.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of them broke. I broke 5 of them, I think, just by doing that, and they were reasonably expensive. My dad broke 2 of them, one after the other. She's like, "Wow!" Rip it apart. It's great.
That's.
But I wouldn't do that again. I won't do that again. And I'm kind of stuck on this next album how I'm going to release it, and I think I'm just going to do a digital version. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do USBs. I'm not doing CDs. I'm just not going to do it. You can have a download and that's it, I think.
Yeah, I've made. I think Dan can chime in on this, but like when I do shows, like we sell tons of CDs and T-shirts at shows. So I kind of, if I don't make a physical product, like my dad and his friends won't buy digital because they never listen to digital, and there's like a segment of our crowd that will pay 20. Like there are people hounding me for vinyls, and I'm like, no, sorry guys, we won't ever make them. But I know people are like the physical items, so I figured like instead I can give you like a CD, but it's in a wooden box branded to the band, and you can reuse that to put like dices or whatnot. Curtis talked about his favorite sci-fi book.
Yeah, I just saw that, and I thought, yeah, we can go into that. And I saw that come in. And actually, Curtis, that's my favorite book too. That is my favorite book. And my third album is based on is a fan fiction about characters in that book. We are writing the third album as we speak. it's in comic form. The first and second pages have been written. The story is in segments, and it is based on characters out of that Stranger in a Strange Land book. So well done, sir. That's right. What influences? We may as well just go straight into it. And people don't want to hear about music. Who cares about that? So what influences have you had in your music? And Dan, just feel free to jump on in whenever you're ready. You don't need to wait to be invited.
No, you guys have a very quick chat, so I like to listen a lot.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm a good listener.
Hi,
But yeah,
Fi. Sorry.
I'll let Dan go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. What influences your output?
I've always been passionate about. I honestly didn't read the big book of sci-fi, but I've always been passionate about short stories and novel. I remember when I was a kid, looking at episode of the Twilight Zone in black and white. I mean, I'm not so old, but I was a kid when they were airing TV, and I remember this kind of story that they look. There were at the time there was not CGI. There was not like so visual. Mostly they were like the situation were kind of strange and weird, and that one. Plus, I remember going to my uncle's house and seeing these big books with the big worms on it, or big robots. Because he was a fan of Asimov, and he's still a fan of Asimov, and of course Dune. And I remember watching the movies back in the early 80s, and that was always what fascinated me, is like small stories. I mean, stories set in a weird environment, that most of the time they speak about something that is pretty much normal, but the fact that you using this sci-fi settings, you might say something that is not permitted or is taboo, or you not should speak about it. If you think about the first interracial kiss in the history of American TV is one episode of Star Trek, where Uhura has been forced to kiss Kirk by an alien which has the form of a Roman emperor. And that was it was never happened in the TV, and then thanks to but this is sci-fi. This is something that is very fantastic. So you can do and talk about this kind of stuff. And yeah, this is how I approach the sci-fi. So it's still in the songs and in the imaginary of Gramma Vedetta. I want to talk about something that my annoying people, or something I want to talk about myself, but I don't want to be explicit because it's boring. So I put in a way that it creates like a visual. I create a story, puts the listener into something he doesn't is custom on that. So this is my influences mainly on the sci-fi side.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of writers and comic writers and stuff like that, illustrators who have used exactly what you said, like used sci-fi to get through these taboo subjects. But because if you make aliens do it first, then it's not like, I remember Star Trek had an episode where the aliens they were going to do a conference, and the aliens were literally black and white. One of them was white faced, and the other one was black faced, and the other one was, and then they had their opposite. And I guess at that time that was a very odd thing to have on TV, so blatantly out there in pop culture. So yeah, I think a lot of sci-fi still does that now, right? I think The Expanse is dealing with the class system of, it's not really much about race, it's about what job you're doing. Are you a blue collar or white collar worker? And that's really what makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah,
like close to the sci-fi of Black Mirror, for example, instead of the sci-fi of Avengers or something like that. I'm more like towards that kind of sci-fi,
edgier stuff.
Yeah.
I think probably everyone around this table is more on the edgier side of the sci-fi than Avengers, I think.
Yeah, I
You can be into Avengers out there. Don't no, I'm not dissing anybody. It's just not. It's not.
Oh
here.
no. What I mean is I'm definitely into the more like social, like my first forays into sci-fi were like Isaac Asimov and the Foundation series, which is all about like the future of mankind and society and stuff like that. It's I'm not into like the green glowing rocks give you superpowers stuff. Speaking of like putting like the taboos of society and stuff into art, I watched a really cool movie last night. Was it last night or the other night? Oh, I don't like 2 days ago, I think. And it was it's called Sorry to Bother You. It's not exactly sci-fi, but there's like an element of it. But it's about like a guy at a telemarketing company who goes up the ladder, becomes kind of the leader, and then it's like just such a warped way of the not warped way, but warped representation of the American society, just to show like the hypocrisy of the American system and stuff. And it's like they use sci-fi just to give it like a bit more punch. I can't like really talk about the sci-fi elements without spoiling everything. But as far as books go, one of my favorite authors, it's going to be reversed now, but it's Norman Spinrad.
No, we can see it. It's fine. It's good. You're good.
He does like weird and like surreal kinds of sci-fi. Like one of the stories in that anthology, he does mostly short stories, and one of them is about like they send a crew aboard a spaceship, and to make them survive the journey and the toll that it takes on their psyche, they like fill them up with shrooms and psilocybin, and they start hallucinating stuff, and then when they come back on Earth, their hallucinations are all real, and they've brought back like terrifying aliens and monster and stuff because they like summoned them out of thin air. So yeah, it's like really interesting because he explores stuff about our society and our fears, and he has written most of those in the 90s and the 80s. So he talks about the Cold War, but it's also like it feels like a Salvador Dali painting, the way he talks about it. Like there's a story about a band who like bring forth the end of the world by making the loudest noise since the Big Bang.
It's disaster area, really, from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, it does bring back. And another one of my influences, I don't have any of his books because I took them from the library, but I have like a RPG made out of it. But it's H.P. Lovecraft, because I think like cosmic horror is a really great way of using like metaphors, for society's problem. And Lovecraft was like a racist piece of shit, but the way he portrayed his racism made it like it's a potent metaphor for why you should not fear the other. Yeah, it's Norman Spinrad. The book is it's a French collection. It's a translation, but it's I'll give you the name of the stories. So it's there's like the Last of the Romani, and then there's the Great Flash. I'll drop those in the chat later, Curtis. But yeah, so this specific book is a new role-playing system I just bought called Delta Green, which kind of takes the Cthulhu Call of Cthulhu mythos and fuses that with Men in Black. So you're playing Men in Black kind of characters trying to shield the American government from the great old ones and the great elders and stuff like that.
Yeah, why settle for a lesser evil, really? I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, and the fun part is like it's it's kind of like those MK Ultra type stuff where the actual government doesn't know what's going on because they're like buried deep within the state apparatus, and it's SCP files are a great example of that kind of storytelling, Dante. I spent many hours just digging through the SCP Foundation, reading up the crazy collaborative lore that they come up with. So yeah, that's my, like, I tend to approach it from a societal standpoint. Like, how can I mirror today's society in a cool sci-fi setting, and then like reflect on what we're doing in our lives, you know?
Yeah, I think my major influence was Aliens. So every one of my stories has been about how terrible humanity is, and I just ran with that basically. I just wanted to be Vasquez my entire life. Ripley is a terribly wet character in my eyes, and I hear we're going to have a young Ripley series coming out soon on Disney Plus, and I say no. I say no to that. I say, young Vasquez, that's where you want to go. That would be a far better character. How did we get buff core lady? Hero of mine from being a small age. Yeah, so just, that film, I watched it when it first came on TV, and that was it. Because I've never been a big reader, I have to say. I'm just terrible. I've never been a reader. I think it's because my mom was a comic book writer back in the day, and you run away from the things that your parents do when you're a kid, don't you? So I ran away from sci-fi in a massive way because our house was filled with it. I come from a sci-fi writer's household, and I had to grow up and then go home to my mom and go, let's make comics together, yay!
Back in the family business.
Back in the family business, indeed. Yeah. So I went to Comic Cons and all sorts of stuff when I was like a little tiny child, and my mom talked on panels and all sorts of stuff, and I'd just hang out underneath the tables and all the stuff. And an illustrator once told me that my mom was booed on a 2000 AD panel because she didn't write the stories that 14-year-old boys wanted to see in 2000 AD in the late 80s. But I don't remember any of that ever happening. I mean, maybe it just didn't happen on the one I was at. I can't imagine how bad that would have been. But I don't think I didn't remember seeing that happen. But yeah. So all my stuff was out in films, Star Trek, Babylon 5. I love Babylon 5. Again, all things where humans are real. They're real people. Like, they only get a patch of land to grow some vegetables on, and someone sneaks coffee on it. Of course. And humans have to pay rent all the time. Star Trek, they get away scot-free with all sorts of stuff. Babylon 5, no. Pay your rent, do your taxes.
Yeah, but Star Trek is the like post-scarcity dream that we have.
Yeah, but come on, that's not happening.
Yeah, that like one of the main problems in our society in the Alpha Bootis universe is that the planet was like, the city was designed for like one batch of Earth refugees, and then 4 centuries later, like dozens of ships came in from Earth, and they were like, okay, well, we can't let these people die. So we're gonna turn a like really cool garden planet that has like 1 kilometer per person into like this sprawling Tokyo style city so we can house everyone. And now everybody feels like feels weird because they kind of destroyed their utopia to respect or honor the principles of their utopia. So Curtis asked, what are good sci-fi horror games? I'm not a fan of horror games specifically. I do like tabletop role playings, but I don't like horror movies. I don't like horror games, but I like horror books and horror role playing.
Yeah, I don't do horror at all. I don't. Not one bit.
I don't remember which one was. I knew a game, sci-fi horror game. It's quite like probably 10 years old. So if I try to Google it and then I give you back an answer, Curtis.
And we have thank you, Tall Man, by the way, for following me. He says he's only here to roast you though, Etne. So
Yeah, for people who don't know, Talmat is the drummer of Alpha Bootis.
Dead Space. Sorry, Dead Space. Is that-
yeah,
Oh yeah,
Rick and Dante say they're both playing Dead Space. So yeah. That is happening. That is happening.
Curtis just fired us all.
These guys are all power.
For not liking horror. I tell you, I mean, the reason I don't watch horror is because, and you're going to think this is so lame, is because of Blair Witch Project. That was the film that killed horror for me. I cannot, it broke something inside me. That's the only way I can describe it. Me and my friend watched it the night it was released on Halloween night, whatever year that was. And the whole cinema actually was screaming at the end of it. Like, just, I'm not going to say what happens at the end in case anyone hasn't watched it and cares enough to watch it. But the whole cinema was screaming. I didn't sleep for 2 days. I watched the Grand Prix that night because I just could not sleep for fear. And I didn't want to ever go camping again in a forest. And I was actually scared of going to Glastonbury Festival that year in fear that someone would put little piles of stones outside my tent. It seems so ridiculous, but that broke all horror in me. And now I only watch happy Disney films. No, I don't watch Disney at all.
I have a weird relationship with the horror because when I watched the Blair Witch Project, for me it was like, okay, not so. But I don't watch horror movies because if there are splatter scenes, I literally puke because I cannot see violence and blood in any visual form. So I try to stay away from horror movies for that reason. Although I saw From Dusk Till Dawn, which is like super splatter, and it's funny. I didn't have any bad reaction on that. So that's weird.
Yeah, Dusk Till Dawn's not real. I could watch Dusk Till Dawn easily. I mean, that's funny stuff's fine. It's when it's actually, especially psychological horror. What do you call that biker series? Sons of Anarchy. I used to watch that until the 4th season, and it got psychologically wrong, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I stopped mid-season. I'm done.
yeah. I like horror movies. Will like give me nightmares for weeks because I tend to have. That's like a thing I deal with like every day. It's like I get like those invasive thoughts of seeing myself in accidents. Like it's kind of a weird anxiety related thing, but it's like I'll see myself cross the street and get hit by a car. Like I don't want it to happen, and it just comes like it's a flash. But horror movies do that to me. Like they just crank that up to the maximum for weeks. So horror books are okay because my own imagination I can control, but when it's like from the TV or from a video game or whatnot, it will stick with me for a long time. And also the rest of the time, like I find them boring because the music gives too much of it away, and I know all of the tricks the musicians use to make that happen. So I'm kind of okay, somebody's gonna die, like they're playing DSE Ray, or like they're doing a string swell with some electronics. Someone's gonna die.
Can you guys name another movie that is not splattered at all? So no blood, but for you is unbearable to watch.
I've a movie without like gore or whatnot that I can't like stand watching is A Quiet Place. Like I saw that in the theaters, and it's like it completely freaked me out because you don't actually really see violence in it, or very little of it, but there's no music for the whole movie. It's just the sounds of the people walking and of the beast hunting them. Because it's about a beast that can only hear. It doesn't see, it doesn't smell. It only follows you for sound. The one movie that scared me the most in terms of like psychological horror was The Babadook, which is it's not actually a horror movie. It's a movie about fear, or about the toll that horror and fear have on us, and it's really great. It's if you've seen the meme, like where the mother asks a child, "Why are you like this?" and the child just screams. It's from that movie, actually.
Okay, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of a film that does that for me. I just no, I can't think of one. I will say that we have hit a personal best, and we've had double-digit viewers. Hooray! Lovely.
Yes.
If you're out there and you're not following, quite frankly, come on, get involved, because we're going to be doing stuff like this every Wednesday night. So yeah, come and join us, and come and give us a follow, subscribe, you know, all that bell ringing nonsense, notification nonsense. You know how it works. I don't need to tell you. Just get on with it. Also, if you are an Amazon Prime member, you know, you always subscribe. Bezos doesn't need that money. We do. There's 2 channels involved here. You guys can link in your channels in the chat just so that folks know it. But I think you're hosting us on your Twitch anyway, so
Yeah.
just come and join us. Come and join us.
I'm not gonna stream that much on Twitch soon, but I'm gonna do music production streams on my Discord server, which I will link in the chat. We talk about sci-fi, we play games like Among Us, and we chat about music, our days, stuff. It's a really cool community. And I'm gonna be doing like working on some Alpha Bootis music live in there. I don't want it to be like public, but I don't mind anybody coming into the Discord and seeing it.
Yeah, I did want to ask you about this because I am kind of tossing up whether I'll do the same thing. Like, I do have an album creation Friday that, so I'm like, you already live streamed previous album releases, right? Or EP releases?
Yeah, so we did a release party for our last EP. The technical difficulties were like unbearable, but I learned a ton. But I did, when the pandemic started, I had the idea of like doing remixes and doing those live streamed, because what I like about live streaming is that it helps me stay focused on work. You know, I said I was going to be live for 3 hours. I have to do it. I can't get distracted by Facebook or Twitch or whatnot.
So how did that work out for you, though? I mean, was it worth it? Is my question, because, you know, I'm kind of thinking about doing the same thing.
In terms of crowd or like public, no. Like, I got like 4 or 5 or 7 of my friends to come hang out, but it made me think more about my process, because I had to explain it while I was doing it. So kind of in the same way that teaching something is the best way to like really master it, doing the live production streams, like in the live remix streams, helped me like get better at making music. And I'm not like less productive. Like, if it takes me 7 hours to do a song off stream, it's going to take me 7 hours to do it on stream. So it's like a no-lose situation, where if at some point like new people find out about my music that way, well, that's great. But if they don't, like nobody does, I'm still making good music and enjoying the process.
Yeah, I did a animation one because I'm learning. So basically, I have animated comic books, right? So last album I paid somebody to do that for me, and this time there's just no money. So I'm learning to do animation myself, and I started doing that on Twitch. Just having like office buddies where I just like come online for however many hours I was going to work on the comic book. But it's just I find that I kind of thought it was just going to be too boring for anyone to sit in, and God help Abby, one of my moderators, lovely lady that she is, often comes and sits with me, and I don't know what she's doing at home, crafting herself, I guess, and we just chat about whatever. But from a content point of view, it's not something you can really share. It's not something, you know, that anyone's going to be interested in until you've got a following, I guess. Like if my favorite band was to do that, I'd watch it, but you have to get to people's favorite bands first. You get to the point where you're people's favorite bands before it's relevant, I guess. And
Yeah.
I think even having like to live stream, I have to think about, what I'm wearing, what the lights are doing, all that kind of stuff. And if I'm making music, I just want to turn it on and get it going. It's like it's hard enough to get the process going in the first place. So I could sit for hours and like record and write songs and things like that and do animation, but it's getting into that zone and start with is always the problem. There's always a million other things easier things I could be doing to get in the way of all of that.
The reason remixes work really well for me streaming is that, like, I get the stems, I open them in Ableton, and then I start streaming, and I'm like, okay, so we've got this song. What am I going to do about it? Like, what can we use? And like that becomes kind of like a live, like kind of playing live. When you make a mistake, you just go with it and you try to like keep the train moving. And one of my flaws as a producer is that I think too much about stuff. So I will spend like 3 hours on how my snare sounds if I don't pay attention to it. I think some people can relate to that. So when you're live on stream, you don't have like 3 hours to spend on your kick drum. People are going to get bored. Yes, Matt is roasting me about the fact that I make many mistakes when we play live.
This is not the time to air your dirty laundry, Matt.
No, it's okay.
Thanks for the host as well, by the way.
I'm just, I no matter how many hours of practice I put in, I'm gonna flub my solo or forget the words to a song I've written or whatnot. My brain does that.
I think everybody does that. Everyone does that. I had a promoter for a festival turn up at one of my shows, and I completely ruined the one solo I have in my entire set. Just like out the window. And somebody in the audience was like, actually, at that part of the story, our character is starting to go a bit mental, and they thought it was just a new version of the song. I had done that on purpose because it suited the character, and I'm like, okay, good. Let's hope the promoter thought that.
Yeah, like tons of the mistakes we do, I think Dan can agree with that, is you do a mistake and nobody notices, but you did it.
Yeah, yes, that's true. Usually when I made a mistake, now I smile. So
yeah.
that's the people who knows me in the audience when see myself smiling to bass player, to Marco, they notice that I did a mistake. Otherwise, you can go on, make like a poker face, everything is fine.
Yeah. Like, oh no, I was just improvising.
Exactly. So in terms of streaming, we don't do live session myself, but I want to share my Marco, the bass player, Instagram profile. I'm gonna share it on Facebook because I don't have Twitch access.
Yep, that's cool.
And he is also a music producer. He does electronic music. Sometimes he does a little bit of self jam at home using some loop station, the keyboards and synths, and yeah, it's nice to see. It's something completely different from Gramma Vedetta, but definitely something that is worth to watch. In terms of content, I'm trying to capture what I'm doing when I do something interesting, like miking or testing new gear at home. Like I basically built kind of a home studio with a ISO cab. I have an ISO Vox to sing vocals. So during the lockdown, I can kind of record a whole album. And I like to do this kind of video when I had the chance. So I probably, now that we are gonna start to record the album in lockdown mode, I'm gonna produce like some kind of behind the scene of what's gonna happen during the recording.
Yeah, I mean, Curtis will absolutely come in on this and just tell us all that we should be doing more content. I'm putting words in your mouth, big lad. More content. Take photos of everything, the whole shebang. the whole shebang. So on a Friday morning, because of live streaming, I also need to do. So I wanted to do a Friday morning on Facebook and stuff, but I also wanted it to be an office day kind of thing. So I have downloaded Curtis's PR, how to optimize your social media, for musicians. I don't know what he can link it in. Basically, I'm going to go through every step of that on a Friday morning for the next 2 weeks on my live stream, because I just needed live stream content. And then I saw that and I thought, that's amazing. So yeah, I'm just going to go through all of that and see where it takes us. But you've also told me that I can now change my YouTube channel to my Death and Gloria name, which I didn't know I could do. And yeah.
Yes, once you get 100 subscribers, you are allowed to put your name in the URL. So it's youtube.com/c/ whatever you'd like to put.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing that.
If you guys want to help us get there, you can subscribe to our YouTube. We're going to be releasing stuff out there soon.
Link in your your YouTube in there.
Yeah, I'll drop that next time I mute myself. So the other thing I like about live is that I think just interacting with fans is the part I like the most about playing shows. Like talking to the crowd, having banter in between the songs and after, and at the merch table and stuff. And right now I don't have that in my life because I'm not going to see 2 shows a week and playing a couple shows every year. So I think live streams are the next best thing. We've been doing a weekly live stream where we just play Among Us with friends and fans of the band, and that's been really good. I usually end up with one new person checking the band out every time we do those streams, and it's just us sitting there having fun murdering each other for 3 hours. And Eyes of a Hunter is I scared the new person.
I know, it's good. It's good. But Tall Matt does seem like a bit of a beast behind the kit there, where he's talking about his China.
Oh yeah, Tall Matt is very good at hitting the drums very loudly, and looking like an absolute mad lad when they're drumming, which is one of the things I enjoy about them.
That's what you want.
They're also very good. They also have that, the musician who comes in and is like, yeah, I didn't rehearse anything, and then he gets scared and then they nail the song. And you're like, oh, fuck you. Kindly fuck off with your talent.
How dare you be so talented? How dare you be?
Yeah. I rehearse, I write the song, I rehearse it for a full year before showing it to the band, and then I still suck.
Yeah, well, I've even foregone even having a band. So I have been playing on my own for the last 3 years, and I just have completely done it myself because I felt too self-conscious about playing with other people that I just did it myself. And I play with 10 channels of audio going to the mixing desk, so it sounds like a full band, and everything has been mixed to death, essentially. So it gets mixed for the album, it gets then remixed by a live sound engineer for live, and then I run all the stems to the desk. And sometimes it works when there's an actual desk and there's a sound engineer, it works really well. And then other times when I have to engineer myself, so I basically just take the output from my own rig into the PA, the powered speakers or wherever, just go straight into the speakers, and it doesn't work quite as well because you really need the desk really adds. It's odd, I never thought, because I'm not a live sound engineer, I never considered that a sound desk would add so much to the sound. It really does add the extra oomph and low end that is generally missing out of the whole thing. So now I never do it. I try never to do a show where I'm coming out of my rig straight into powered speakers. So I'll even carry a mixing desk with me just to up the ante a little bit, which is ridiculous because I'm essentially going through 2 mixing desks. It's a little bit mad.
But the sound engineer knows the room.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the times when there's no engineer. When you do Comic Cons, some Comic Cons I've turned up and it's literally, I've brought the PA with me. I've done that twice now, actually. They've put me in some conference room. I've probably done it 3 times, I think. twice in Swansea and once in somewhere up north. Can't remember. Warped Con it was called, but I don't remember where it was. Doncaster or something. And I brought the entire PA for the other bands, or I just brought powered speakers, and you know, I've done every kind of version of room that you can possibly do, and it just doesn't work out. Doesn't really work out that way.
Oh yeah, Eyes of a Hunter is like, hey, someone told me about filtering the high frequency, and now I can't unhear the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when I learned how to remove S's and sh sounds from recordings, and I was hearing them everywhere in all of my favorite records, and I was like, my ears, and it was just me over focusing on them. We have like we have a click track and backing tracks running for the shows, because originally the band was synthwave, and then we released our first EP, and 3 days after the release, somebody asked us to play a show that was like 2 months and a half later, and we're like, okay, we're just two guys making music with mouse and keyboard. We're not actually able to play that stuff live, but we're gonna say yes nonetheless. We're gonna find a keyboardist and find a drummer, and we're gonna make it happen. And so that's when we recruited Tall Matt and Harakoa, who's our singer. And then I took the synth parts and adapted them for guitar, and Frack, my co-composer, took his bass and played like the bass lines. And we had like 30 tracks per song with like tons of really fast arpeggiators and stuff that's like barely playable on keyboard. So we had to like rig stuff to make it happen live. Now we've added a sax player to the band on Stowaway Ants, and we're going forward with a sax player in the band, which is amazing because I can play the riffs and he can play the leads. And I started like recording actual guitar on the albums instead of just synthesizers and stuff. So we're really we're like those punk bands who morphed into new wave bands, but it's from synths to metal instead.
Oh yeah. That's perfectly acceptable. Perfectly acceptable. Have you heard of that band Machina or Mechana? I don't know how you pronounce it.
No, I can't say I have.
They're sci-fi based. It's two fellas, a fella called Joe, and I cannot for the life of it, it's just gone out of my head. And they don't tour, they just do studio albums, and they drop a studio album every New Year's Day, I think. And they create some sounds that I have no understanding, even how, honestly, no idea how they create the sounds they create. You know, it's when you get into any kind of production, whether it's metal, you know, I mean, as in metal fabrication or whatever, if you work in an industry, you kind of have an understanding of how what's the word? How the bread's made.
Oh yeah, how the sausage is made.
Yeah, how the sausage is made. But when I listen to Mechana or Machina, however you pronounce it, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. They're just amazing space sounds, and
a producer that does that for me is a couple of the hyperpop producers, but specifically Dylan of 100 Gex. Like the sounds they make are just, I don't understand at all how they were made. Whereas like most of the stuff, like whenever I hear something on a rock record, I can kind of tell, okay, was that kind of effect, or like I don't know the exact details, of course, but yeah, it's I like artists that just push their style so far ahead of everybody else, and then you're kind of left figuring out how the fuck they do it.
Yeah. I have to, because we were talking about this earlier, but okay, so I know how they make their sounds, but Coheed and Cambria, I mean, I've absolutely stolen their comic book idea for sure.
I mean, it's a great idea.
Yeah. So I've seen them 19 times, and I've been very lucky to have stood at the side of stages at festivals with them, and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I don't know them or anything, and I'm just a blagger who got in places I shouldn't have been. That's not true. I was working, so I've owned their comic books. I owned the handbag and the belt buckle all over the time, and it got to the point where the story was so complicated that I really had no real understanding what was happening. And that was the one thing about Coheed and Cambria I wanted to change. So I did in my stories, in the fact that my albums finish. They don't carry on. They're not the same stories. They're separate stories every album. Because I just didn't want to create a whole big. Because I knew I would have gone down a rabbit hole, and then it would have got complicated very quickly. So yeah, I saw the 18th and 19th time I saw Coheed and Cambria one after another in Camden, and then I saw them 5 times, technically 4 times, but 5 times in the same week when they did a Never Ender in London.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and they were building, but they still are building like new trains in that area. It was at the Astoria in London that's not there anymore. And someone in the underground on the 3rd night cut through a power supply, and all the power went off on that block. And we were in the bar next door, the Crow Bar, and so they cancelled the show because there was no power to the Astoria. And the guitarist, I've forgotten his name, Kyle, perhaps, came in, and we were talking to him. And then, so that was my favorite night, was Silent Earth album was going to be on that night, and maybe it was the second, I can't remember what day it was. Anyway, so the whole album, rather, they do on the Neverender, they do every album in sequence. They go one night, one album, right? And whatever night the Silent Earth album was on, that was the night the power went out, and that got put back to the Friday of that week. And the place had sold out, and it was completely sold out for all the shows. But because that one album night got cancelled and postponed to the Friday, people had travelled all over Europe to go to that gig, right? They'd bought their tickets and stuff, so they'd all booked travel to go home. So on the Friday, there was like half capacity of that venue to watch my favorite album, and it was the best show ever. It was just the most amazing gig. The whole week was amazing because I went on my own. No, I went with somebody. No, I didn't. I went with one other person, and we met up with a bunch of randoms, and we just hung out with them. And I have had one of the fellas I met at that show is sound engineering my next live stream gig in like 3 weeks. And I've had people from that show play on my albums as come in, and it was just such a great week. We went from Coheed and Cambria show into club nights, because back then London had club nights for metal and alternative music every night of the week, and that doesn't happen anymore, obviously.
Yeah, I last time I saw Coheed, that was not a festival. When they played In Keeping Secrets, the crowd was so loud that we couldn't hear the music, like for the whoa, oh, like only the crowd. It was mental. The one band I've seen too many times that is not a local band, because I've seen like a local death metal band called Shape the Above like 12 times. But I saw like Architects on every tour they did from like 2013 to now. So I saw them like 7 times in Montreal. And they're just like a phenomenal live band. Coheed I've seen like 4 times, I think. They don't come to Canada that often.
They don't really tour a lot. They're not, I don't think.
Yeah, they tour like less than other bands their size, I think, just because Claudio has like so many other streams of income that they don't have to do it as much. I also saw like Protest the Hero 4 or 6 times. 4 or 5 or 6 times, I don't know how much.
Did any of you see the Tesseract show, the Portals show that happened a wee while ago?
I don't think they came to Montreal.
Oh no, it was a live stream. It was a live stream.
Oh, the
show.
live stream. Oh yeah. No, the live stream I saw. Yeah, that was great. Because I watched one like earlier in the pandemic where they kind of talked about the songs in between. That was really cool. Oh yeah, Matt talks about seeing Destridge on their first North American gig. That band, like Destridge, is a great band. Really wacky, technical, and all over the place music, which I love. Dan, what's the band you've seen the most?
Wow. Dream Theater, probably. Yeah. So I was, just in the background, I was living in a small town in Sardinia, Italy. You don't see any gig. You didn't see any gigs back in the 90s. So my first gig was in 1997. I was 17 years old, and I took the ship to Sardinia to Milan to see Dream Theater. And then from that date, and then when I started university, I was able to live in Milan, and I was able to see gigs. And then, yeah, I believe I saw it like 8 times. And the second bands I see the most are Yes, also with the original lineup, except Bill Bradford. I saw with the full lineup with Rick Wakeman and Alan White, Chris Squire. I saw another band I saw a lot is Megadeth, because I'm fan of also 80 thrash metal. But since I'm after my 30s, I started to go and see smaller bands, smaller show, because it's the one the one that connects me more with the music. In fact, some of the band I listen to right now, like Monster Magnet, or even if they are kind of old, I discovered like probably 10 years ago. Monster Magnet, Red Fang, I saw them live first on a gig, and then I got hypnotized, and then I got and discovered their discography. And since I moved here in London, before the lockdown and everything, I try to be active in going to gigs, and except at the beginning when I had to settle down a little bit, I was able to go to at least one gig per week, which is not bad, and I discovered a lot of small but also like medium-sized band I didn't know before. So yeah, bigger bands was thing on the past, I believe. Now I prefer like smaller stuff.
I would go.
Yeah,
I would concur with that for sure.
I've been fan of Rush since I was 18, but they never toured Italy until 2004. So I was able to see them in Milan, and then I saw them twice. They came twice. I was able to come to go and see them.
Yeah, I never managed to see Rush and show before they retired, even though I'm Canadian, because every time they came to Montreal, it was at the Bell Centre with 22,000 tickets that were like upwards of $80 or $100 each, which kind of annoyed me. The one show I saw like early on that kind of changed my life was seeing Iron Maiden there, like when I was it was 9 years ago, so I was 13. Was I? No, I was 15 9 years ago. Math is hard. But yeah, so I like took my money from my summer job and went to see Iron Maiden. But yeah, now nowadays I just go to in the before times, I just go to like local club shows. I know like tons of musicians in the city in Montreal, so I just go to my friends' shows, and that fills up my schedule. I also go I used to go like twice a month to a place called Le Petit Bar, which means the small bar. Mm-hmm. And you can sit like 30 people inside, and there's a singer-songwriter show every night all year long, and it's all French singer-songwriters or from Montreal, and like everybody in the crowd sings. We do like, when my friends and I go there, we like harmonize with the people playing there, and it's like super intimate, super cool, and those are like the best shows.
I feel like London's got had, well, not so much now, but when I first arrived here 1,000 billion years ago, it had such a great scene. Like going to see bigger bands, just there was so many of them coming through London anyway that you kind of cherry picked the big ones. But there was so much talent and so many venues that were just worth going to before you went out to a club or something back in the day. And it's kind of the whole scene's been ripped apart before the pandemic. Like Central London has become, I mean, there's the 100 Club is about the only small venue left in Central London. I can't actually think of anything else that's not jazz related or whatever.
I moved in London when everything started to disappear. So I moved here like 6 years ago. No, yes, 7 years ago, and the 12th bar just closed. I was able to go to the Crowbar, which has closed recently. And yeah, I mean, the problem is when you move from one city to another, from a country to another country, it's like you have to start from scratch, and it probably sometimes takes some time to get up to speed, to know the place, to know people, and the older you get, it's more difficult, to go out every night and socialize every night. It became like a little bit of tired to stay late. Still I see that there is a nice scene here. Comparing to my experience in Milan when I was living there, there is as musicians there is more space here to play live, to do your own show, to become your own, the owner or your show. They give you, there are a lot of venues that give you your responsibility, set up a show, do your own gigs, invite your own band, do your lineup, and do your own promotion. While in Milan was more difficult. Every time you have to pass some kind of selection, you have to ask, and sometimes you need to be inside between the circle of friends in order that your band get called and play there. Even so, everyone says London scene is dying, and I believe that, but still, I think it still gives me something. So I'm happy to hear.
Yeah. Montreal has had like similar issues. So I'd say we're like 10 years behind London, New York, and Paris in terms of like the center of the city becoming like totally gentrified and impossible to rent in. And like right before the pandemic in December of 2019, like one of the biggest underground venues called the Catacombs closed, and like earlier that year we had lost one of the best underground venues as well, Divan Orange, and like those are the venues that made Arcade Fire. Like they're the venues where those bands like Malajube, Arcade Fire, and all the Montreal scene in the early 2000s, where they cut their teeth and where they like grew their following, and all of them are dying right now because the rents are like increasing, and the noise complaints are killing them. So we've been losing good venues. We're still, I don't know how the scene is gonna look like when the pandemic stops, because we've had like 3 lockdowns so far. Some of the best venues in the town have closed because of the pandemic. But like in 2019, Montreal was an amazing music city. We've got like big festivals going all summer, but also like Dan was saying, you can call up a bar and be like, okay, I want to put a show in 3 months. Here are the dates I have already contacted like 3 other bands. Can we make that? Blah, blah, blah. And you get decent deals, and it's not pay to play bullshit. And we have like a decent you know, crowd coming in at these shows that likes local music and stuff. The main issue with Montreal that you don't have in Europe or in the United States is that the other big city is the other big music market is Toronto, and that's 6 hours drive. Oh, sorry,
Sorry.
my dad tried calling me. But yeah, so the bigger markets, like Montreal is the second big city biggest city in Canada. Toronto is the other one. It's 6 hours, and Vancouver is 3 days because it's on the other side of the continent. So you can't really like tour in Canada unless you're targeting really smaller markets, like 200, 300,000 people cities. Whereas in Europe, you're basically like, with a day's drive, you can go to any of the big cities.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
So we've got some. I'd like to welcome I Could Be You. How you doing? How you doing? Yeah. So Central London. So 229 venue. I think that's Brick Lane, isn't it? Is that Brick Lane? I'm pretty sure I've played that venue. But you said it's Regent's Park. 229. I thought that was Brick Lane. Anyway.
It's near Warren Street, I guess.
Oh yeah, maybe I haven't played there then. And then the other ones that are mentioned are Fighting Cocks. They've got a crowdfunder at the moment. If you want to support the Fighting Cocks, just Google. I think it's on Kickstarter. It's one of the Save Our venues. Lexington doesn't look as if it's going to come through this. Actually, they're in real big trouble. They didn't get any funding. The Windmill got saved. I'm pretty sure that they got funding to help them through. 229's in Euston. Okay, I've never played there then. The other problem we have here in London is that the ultra low emission zone is coming into the M25, which means there's a ring around London, and everyone who comes in there has to pay a lot of money to bring a car in. And I used to be the promoter up at the Unicorn in Camden. I worked there for about a year before, all promoters go out in a blaze of glory. It happens every promoter who gets replaced in a venue, there is some gossip has happened behind the scenes, I can tell you that. And while I was up there was a number of things that I noticed about the London scene. Mostly the London scene really loves doom and really heavy versions of metal, and anything that's kind of lighter does not get the audiences. So if you want to play London and you're any kind of doomy stoner death black metal band, you'll do pretty well in London. I think there's a good audience for it here. Everything else is a little bit hit and miss. But we had a band from Italy, American band touring Europe. They hired a van in Italy and they couldn't bring it into London because it was too old without and not registered as a London address, and it would cost them £200 to bring their gear in the van into London. So they cancelled the show on the day of the show because they didn't I didn't know it was a problem, and they didn't research it before they got there. So it all went wrong because of this. And that wasn't even the ultra low emission, that was just the low emissions.
Mm-hmm.
So the ultra low emission means that diesels are practically out, and if you're not registered as a car within the system, then it's a massive fee, and if you don't pay it, it's a huge fee as well. So that's going to wipe out most small bands playing London anyway.
Yeah, that sucks. Montreal is also like a death metal scene, deathcore, like black metal, because we're the city of Gorguts, we're the city of Cryptopsy, Beyond Creation. So the tech death, the really like heavy metalcore bands do really well here, but we're also a city full of nerds because we have like 40 of the top 50 video games companies in the world have offices in Montreal. So you got Ubisoft, EA, BioWare. I'm looking over at my girlfriend. Yeah, so it's like all of them are there. So you got a lot of programmers, we have lots of 3D animations, studios and stuff like that. So the nerd centric scene is kind of blooming right now and getting somewhere. We're happy that we're happy that we're coming like in that boom. But like power metal is dead in Montreal. Like there haven't been any notable bands in years. There's a lot of folk metal, but that was from like the early 2000s to like 2010, and then they kind of all died off. And we're lucky that we get like a lot of big European bands come tour here, so we still get good power metal shows from the European bands, but like there's not a scene. All of the East Coast is like stoner doom, death metal, stuff like that.
Yeah, and maybe it's because I fall into this barrel, but Dan should be able to comment on this as well because of his other band, Alice is Sleeping. I feel like unless you're in a stoner doom band, you do need to have a female in your band somewhere to get people to come to your gig. And you know, I'm a woman of a certain age, a feminist of a certain era, I suppose, and I don't mind being labeled as a female-fronted act because if somebody was playing ukulele and metal, would you say it was a ukulele metal band? You probably would, because that, of course you would. It's not a genre. It's just an added marketing term to get butts in the door, and that's fine. And I feel like London and England specific, up north, it's really good market for female-fronted bands. Female singers get a good run, I think, over here quite often. Dan, what do you think about that?
I like to market my other band, Alice is Sleeping, as a female-fronted band.
Sorry, you do or you don't?
I don't.
You don't.
It's not just me. Also Harris, she doesn't like because it's not the characteristic of the band actually. Okay, she's a woman, she sings and she's in front, but it's mostly like the music we do. We do some sort of kind of alternative grunge rock with we get a bit of prog influences, and sometimes maybe someone is gonna hate me, but if you say female fronted, sometimes you attracted people on the audience for the wrong things, and I don't like actually. Sometimes I saw like putting this show as female fronted is more like you go there and you see 5-6 bands that don't match at all between them, other than having like the gender, which is not music related for me. It's like if I go to see a gig of music, I want to see something related to music itself, not the color of the hair of people, or if they play bass with the left-handed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're true. And it is a certain person that comes to those shows. Not all. I have a lot of fans that are like that who fall into that category, and they're awesome. They're really, really awesome. And my band exists because of those people, and so I like it. I'm all for it. And hurdy-gurdy metal, as Tall Matt says in the chat, it's basically hurdy-gurdy metal. That's it. Dan, I don't want to keep you on if you need to go. I mean, we are just gonna jabber on. I mean, that's what these Twitch streams do. They just go on and on. Dan has been signaling to us. Do you need to go, or are you going to stay on?
Yeah, sorry guys.
Yeah, that's all right.
It was great having you on.
Thanks you for having me, and I learned a lot of stuff. I'm gonna send you the stem, Etienne. Okay.
Oh yes. For that remix, I will gladly enjoy toying with that.
Yeah.
So for context,
Yeah.
Dan wrote the theme song of the podcast Curtis and Matt Bacon are doing, and I've been working on a remix of that song before knowing that it was a song that Dan wrote. So now that I met Dan, I'm able to do a proper remix.
Yeah.
Making connections. Oh yeah. All the connections. Anyway, Dan, thanks for joining us. It has been lovely to have you.
Cheers.
I'll see you later. Woo woo. So there's 11 of you on Twitch. That's amazing. Most people I've ever had on a Twitch channel. Well done. If you have not followed, and I know you haven't, not all of yous, hit us a follow. Also follow all the other streams that we've been posting about everyone else's social. So I will redo Dan's in the Twitch chat now. Just go and follow it. Go and follow it. Only if you're into it. I'm not into this follow for follow's sake stuff that gets pimped around an awful lot. You know, only follow something if you are into the content, because you'll just ruin the algorithm. The algorithm will get ruined. Ruined.
And to me, it's the same thing. Like, I don't want people coming to my shows just because they're my friends. I want, like, I just want the people who were like, will enjoy it to come. So I think that helps me with, like, the anxiety towards marketing yourself and pushing for sales and stuff. What I do is I just have a long list of all of my friends who I know enjoy my music and enjoy my show, and those are the people I target.
Yeah.
But it's the same. Like, I don't care if people who are not interested in me don't follow me. I don't care about the follow number. I care about
The
like
quality.
how many people actually listen and like it. And
Yeah. I mean, I think I stopped sharing. You know, when you first start out in a band, you don't have any audience at all. You know, you invite all your friends to everything. You spam the crap out of everybody. Just pay attention to me. And then you get to a point where, like, I'm not going to do that anymore. So I do post a lot of my band stuff, but I mostly just try and keep it within the Death and Gloria pages now. If people want to see it, they'll come and see it pretty well.
Yeah,
I
and
think.
that's also one of the things I love about Bandcamp and Discord, which is that everybody who's on our Discord channel, when I put up a post about stuff that the band is doing, well, I know that they're here because they want to participate in the band's activities, and I know that everybody who wants to read it will read it. There's no algorithm deciding who gets to read it.
Yeah.
And same with Bandcamp, like, all of the followers get the notification. So instead of having to do, like, daily posts like I do on Facebook, or sometimes 3-4 times a day when I have lots of stuff coming out, I can just do one post a week and everybody sees it. And I think that's like respectful of everybody's, time. Because if someone was spamming me every day on Bandcamp, unless it's very cool stuff, I'd be unfollowing pretty fast.
It's actually one thing I'm not on. We're not on Bandcamp. I have never done it. And my manager is my best friend from university. So let's not think that I'm actually signed to anybody. And she's constantly telling me I should get on Bandcamp. I should definitely get on there this album cycle.
You honestly, it's been really great for us as, like, a storefront. Now that I have my own website for the band, which I'm gonna link in the chat, like, I'm not gonna stop using Bandcamp because I make maybe a third of my sales just from people stumbling on our music on Bandcamp. Like, they just will see that someone has bought our album, or someone's gonna write a review of our album, and it's gonna show up on the page. And I've got some, like, amazing reviews on Bandcamp. One from our fellow music marketing mixer, Lisa Mann from White Crone. I'm just gonna read that one out loud because it's just like, she wrote a little story instead of writing a review. So her review is, and I quote, "Put the Doritos in the Ziploc, man. That bag makes too much noise. I stuffed the snack into my coat pocket as we stumble out of the smoke-filled Datsun and cross the parking lot to the planetarium. Space Vikings and other stories," reads the sign. We all high-five each other and enter. The place is packed, just as we assumed. We find a few spots in the back and settle in. Dude, this is gonna put Laser Floyd to shame. It was fantastical indeed. We went back the next time. And that's a review that she left on her music.
Assuming you didn't play a laser show at a planetarium, right?
No. I wish I did, but we did not. But yeah, like, Bandcamp is great. They've started doing live streams, paid like ticketed live streams, and we're gonna try to do one. Basically, right now we can't do live stream shows because we can't meet in person. We're on lockdown. Yeah, the planetarium laser show is a goal for 2023.
We're also in lockdown, but we can meet for rehearsals and live streaming and filming. That is allowed.
Yeah, we could do it if we were doing it in a third-party studio, but since we're doing it from our homes, we don't have the right to. Where we've gone into a very harsh lockdown lately. It was like it's September, we managed to play a show with like people sitting with masks on, and we had like a plexiglass shield. That was our first sold out show because we played a 200 capacity venue that was cut down to 40 place. So I Could Be You says at least Bandcamp pays, and yeah, definitely. Like Bandcamp is great for getting sales. It doesn't pay for streams though. So while I'm really happy, like we've made most of our money either through shows or Bandcamp, I'm still happy at getting streams on Spotify. And Spotify can be a fantastic tool to get discovered as well if the algorithm finds you suitable. But yeah, so like once the pandemic like goes a bit more in control and we're allowed to meet back in person, we're probably going to start doing live streams from Talmat's house because he has an electronic drum kit, and then we can just hook the whole band up, and people are just going to hear like the other people in the house are just going to hear the vocals and the tappity tap of the drums.
Yeah, there's a plugin that you can get for Logic that allows in real time sound to go to one destination. So I'm gonna try and get our rehearsals that way. So the bass player would be with me, because I have a commercial studio essentially. I work in one.
Oh, great.
And the bass player would be with me. The drummer would send us his feed through this plugin on Logic, and then we would live stream that out. In theory, if we were going to do a band that way.
Yeah, that's cool. So to reply to I Could Be You in the Twitch chat, the number of plays that Bandcamp allows is up to the artist, which is really cool. So I don't put a limit on it. After like a couple of plays, it's going to remind you like, you've opened your heart, now open thy wallet. But I can, as an artist, decide if I want to allow unlimited streaming on the app. I just do it because like my goal is to get as many people enjoying my music as they can, so that hopefully one day I can put up stage musicals of Alpha Bootis.
Actually, that was going to be a question of mine. Like, what's the end game for the going back on the sci-fi thing? Really, is what the end game is. Yeah.
Honestly, my goal since I've been so I dropped out of college because I was diagnosed with ADHD and understood why college made me miserable when I got that diagnosis. So since then, my goal is just to work as a musician as much as I can and do whatever I need to do to be able to like sustain my life as a musician. So the reason we come up with all of these stories for Alpha Bootis and we do the whole sci-fi thing is when I looked at the strengths, like I did a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and the T is...
Threats.
What is the T?
Threats.
Threats, yes. So I looked at that and
Business
I was like,
majors
okay,
right
so
here.
the strengths is I'm a really big nerd, so is the rest of the band. We're both, like, me and the singer have been playing D&D together for the past 15 years almost. So we're really good at, like, I'm good at improv, I'm good at writing stories, at like telling, you know, building settings and stuff like that. So we figured, okay, so we're going to take that and build that into the band because that's one of our strengths. And then the opportunities become, okay, we can play conventions, we can play, we can make music for video games, we can, all those cool stuff. But I love musical theater, which is also why I wanted to tell stories through songs. And I got my start playing shows through musical theater. So at some point I want to kind of have the budget to like hire 4 or 6 other singers and have like a full, like what Star Kids are doing with the Holy Musical Batman and Firebringer and all that stuff, but for Alpha Bootis. Which is kind of crazy, but maybe someday I will be able to do that.
But you don't need money to get a choir. You don't need money. I can tell you exactly how you get a choir because I've got one for my next album, and we're recording in 2 weeks' time. And
oh, great!
Yeah.
I mean, I know enough people to like have my own choir. We're gonna use that in. Okay, so I'm gonna drop some hot, fresh spoilers,
right
like
off the
fresh
afterburner.
Announcements, exclusive. It's not a spoiler for the story, but we are working on an album that is a remake of our first EP. Because when we did the first EP, it was only electronics. Now it's saxophone, drums, guitars, bass, vocals, all that stuff. So we're gonna like do the album as we play it live, and we're gonna do a CD release where we package in our latest EP, Stowaway Ends, and we're calling that the science fiction double feature.
Yes.
Inspired by Rocky Horror picture show. So we're going to do a cover of the Time Warp and a cover of science fiction double feature for that. And we're building our own little choir of sopranos to do the Time Warp.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so I got the idea in the shower, and I was like, oh, we can like do a pastiche of the cover of Rocky Horror, like the posters they did for the Rocky Horror, and like the science fiction double feature is like you've got Stowaway Ends, and then you've got Jump to Alpha Bootis, special featured, and so yeah, it's. But as far as like putting up like a real stage musical, it's more a question of like being able to make that sustainable, having the crowd to back it up, because I don't want to like spend 3 years building a stage musical and then playing 4 shows to 500 people. And
yeah. So I was supposed to have a stage show for the second album launch. I was working with a production company, and we just didn't get funding. And then we lost 2. We didn't get 2 funding bids that we put in. We had it all budgeted at 31 grand to do this theater production. So the comic book is about this guy who works in an office, essentially. So we were going to have an actor on stage playing the main character, and then he wouldn't talk, but the comic would be around him. So he would be inside the comic book environment, and we were going to use projection mapping to do speech bubbles and stuff around him, and the other characters would be from the comic book as well. So the plan was that I was going to play live, but I would be in the audience in a box, essentially in the middle of the audience, in a box. There wouldn't be in glass or anything, but like a frame that has cameras on all of the frames, and then I would be made into a hologram, which would then be projected onto the stage with the actor when I'm playing the music.
Oh.
And this is actually really easy to do. It's not. I mean, it's not. It's very cheap to do if you know someone who knows how to run the cameras. And the cameras are like stuff that you get for Xboxes and stuff. They're not.
Okay, yeah.
They're not like And it's how you project it. Like if you get the actual projection screens that you can see through properly, the professional ones, it's like 10 grand a yard. It's really expensive, but you just have to hack it a little bit. But we were going to use a company to help us do all of that, and that's why it got so expensive, because there was like script writers and a tech company was going to do it, and we're kind of just looking at how we can scrap that together ourselves now, because there's no money to do anything, and all the rest. So
that's
if you want to do
to
a
what
theater,
we're doing.
just do a theater, just do it, just don't wait for that. I guess,
No,
yeah.
Ricardo in the chat is talking about Arion universe. I love Arion. Like, I remember picking up the Human Equation and hearing like Michael Ackerfeld, James Labrie, and Devin Townsend like singing together on a rock opera, and I was just, oh my god, this is amazing. But yeah, right now we're like for our next album, like the science fiction double feature, our budget is like under $3,000, including PR, manufacturing, the CDs, and the artwork and all that stuff. Because I'm doing all of the production myself. We did like 1 day of studio for the drums at a friend's place for the cheap, and so we're kind of trying to limit the costs of everything, getting to know like to do everything ourselves. The sax player wants to study in filmmaking at university, so he's doing some video stuff for us, kind of learning how to do this before he gets into the college program. I think that's the way of the future for musicians, honestly, because you need to like build a fan base before you can afford the big budgets. And the best way to build a fan base is just take people along for the ride, I think. It's like, just kind of like what these live streams are. It's like, hey, come hang out with us, see how we're doing this, see how I'm producing those beats and those drums and those guitar lines. Watch me fuck up 40 takes of a song I've written. and then the people like kind of, they get you as a person, and then they get your music as a result. Sometimes it's the other way around. They discover the music, and then you build a relationship with them afterwards.
Yeah. That's pretty much all. It's all live stream. Well, obviously, it's all live streaming right now. I am. It's kind of weird that I'm trying to do theater stuff because I'm the one person on stage, so they have to have something to look at. So I was projecting my animations on the previous album because, what's one person on stage going to do? Not a lot. So get the audience to look at a different story that's happening on the stage with them. But ultimately my end game is anime. I want an anime series so bad. So
that
bad.
would be cool.
So I want to do enough small stories that somebody will decide that it's worth an anime series. But what I need to do is put in the gaps in the story. So my first album only has 7 pages, and there was we chose 7 because we were going to make the comic become a poster. That was originally because in I don't know when it was, 2002 perhaps, Reading Festival. Oh, hold on, my camera's about to go off, I think. Hold on a second. Interesting. And at Reading Festival, Placebo did a comic with 2000 AD where it became a poster. It became a poster.
That's great.
Yeah, so I was going to do that. Hold on one second. My camera is about to go off. I'm going to have to fix that in a second. You can just do that.
If you want, we could take a 2 or 3 minute water break. You can fix the camera and then we can be back.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that.
All right, I will be right back.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, hang in, folks. We'll be back. We'll be back.
The day will come when each and every
Anywho, we are back. So we're talking about my will and want to be an anime character, essentially. No.
Yes.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say was, my end goal for Death and Gloria is to create anime series. I would love to see that. But the problem is the stories have been shortened specifically for the limitations of an album and a comic book. So the first album has 7 pages in the comic book because we wanted it to be a poster, which was inspired by this Placebo 2000 AD. Basically a flyer. They gave it away at Reading Festival at the door. And
Cool.
I have 5 I have 5 copies of it because I'm like, this is going to be worth something someday. So Placebo take on Judge Death. And it's quite. I mean, it's not a great story. The illustrations are good, and that's about as good as it gets, really. I mean, how good a story that would be, anyway. So I wanted to do the comic book that would become a poster, but it wasn't gonna be a poster of me or anything. It would just be an amalgamation of all the things within the comic on the big poster. And then for whatever reason, that didn't work out well for us. We went against that when it came to the design and printing of the whole thing, and just made a book. But we had already limited it down to, I had already limited it down to 7 pages and 7 songs. So I had a story, a whole idea of what had happened to the humans and how they were going to kill themselves and all this other stuff. And I only had 7 pages to do it in, so I had to just leave out entire sections of the story. Couldn't go into it, basically. So to be an anime, I've thought that I have to write the novels of each of the stories. Like, they will just need their own novelization so that it can become a bigger anime script, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of where we started. You know, with our stories, it's like a lot of connecting the dots. So right now we're working with one of my roommates and a longtime friend of mine with whom I play D&D every week, and she's a comic book writer. She's not making money out of that yet, but she will be someday. I just dislike the term aspiring comic book writer, because I'm like, yeah, you're writing comic books. You're a comic book writer. But yeah, so she's like writing the actual stories, but I'm kind of brainstorming all of the plot points and the world building with her. I'm very bad at writing alone because I will never get anything done. I will always second guess myself and stuff. But when I'm working off someone else, it just works so much better. It's the same for music. I always have a co-writer in my projects. Like my own songs that I write alone take forever to get done. Because I think it's like trying to play ping pong against the wall. It's just harder than playing with a good partner. So yeah, our end game is like the full narrative experience with the books, the like eventually books, but for now it's going to be like blog posts, basically, because ongoing stories every week, every month. And at some point transition into like live theater stuff and video games, and I'm not a big fan of like animated like anime and stuff like that, and honestly I don't think it would work that well for our stuff, because it's so, we tend to write these stories that have like 15 different characters that are all doing things at the same time at different places, and they're not like, they don't even know each other sometimes, but they're connected by like society, you know, or by world events or whatnot. And one of the things I want to do, which is why I brought up my role-playing books, is like do a world for people to play tabletop RPG games in, because that's a big part of my imagination, and my upbringing was playing D&D. This Numenera is like a whole RPG system made by asking the question, what is the difference between fantasy and technology. Kind of like that Arthur C. Clarke quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is impossible to distinguish from magic.
Yeah.
And like the guy ran away with it and created this whole, it's like science fiction, but it's also fantasy. And the reason there's magic is because there are like nano robots in the air that you can control. But nobody knows who made them and when they were made, because the world is like our world, but in 2 billion years.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, it's
yeah, just to say that Curtis has joined us again on Facebook, but he said he has to go again. He's away again.
he is a busy man, and with the kids home, that must be like a raucous.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of stuff.
Also, this stream is sponsored by Montreal's tap water.
Woohoo! So next week on this show, I have got a fella called Colin, who is actually the person that I throw Death and Glorious stories at first. So I mean, other than that, he's not involved with the band at all. But this will be the third time I have had a meeting with him where we just discuss story ideas. So we're going to talk about the third album story next week. And I think you'd like Colin. He does a lot of art. He does LARPing, actually. He writes stories for LARPing. I hope you're going to join us. I mean, you're gonna come and co-host with us next week, right?
Yeah. I'm very happy to be co-hosting this. Of course, I will talk less about myself when I'm co-hosting. This was like the Meet the Heroes episode.
Yeah, man.
Like Matt Bacon often says in interviews, like, what is the comic book one version of you?
Yeah.
Which is a great nerdy way of putting it. But yeah, I'm like, I love talking with other creatives about whatever creative stuff they're doing. And if it's in science fiction, all the better, because then I know a lot about it and I love it. As long as I don't spend like 7 hours working out how far my planet has to be from the sun to have a certain medium temperature, which is what I did last night.
Oh, do you
7
know
hours.
Do you know what we do when we have questions like that? We tweet NASA and ask them, and they often.
Oh, I should do that.
Because you get a reply, you will get a reply from them. But also, if you just ask them, like if you just Google a NASA thing, that NASA will have the answer. I mean, you don't really have to.
Yeah, the problem we're having right now is we wrote the songs and mentioned star names before we knew it was going to be a science fiction story. So like we talked about Alpha Bootis, which is a red giant, 170 times more. Like it irradiates 170 times more energy than the sun. So for a planet to orbit Arcturus, which is Alpha Bootis, and be in the livable range, it has to be like 200 times further away. Well, 170 times further away than the Earth from the sun.
Yeah.
So it becomes like these. But the planet, like the star itself, is just like about the same mass as the sun. It's just bigger because it's a red giant and it's like burning helium instead of burning hydrogen. So it like created all of these problems. So we just like picked the star that's like right next door and made the story centered there. So it's like they were aiming for Alpha Bootis, but they kind of had to go over to the next small, brown dwarf. There, it's I like it. Like I like doing that. It's just I'm trying to. The science fiction I enjoy is the one that doesn't just like say that stuff is made with unobtainium or that the glowing green rocks give them their powers, and try to like keep things plausible. Not, or like if they do it like when they do it like in Mass Effect, where it's like you have these mass relays that were created by we don't know who, and we discovered them and then we built our civilization around them, then I kind of buy in, But if it's all like the Star Wars effect, where it's just like, yeah, it exists because we wanted it to exist so we could sell action figures,
Yeah. It's
like the Ewoks. They're
oh,
cute.
They're cute. What
They're
is?
cute, but they make no sense.
Yeah, well, small bears are just good merch. Good merch. Good merch item.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that? The Jaja Binks toy and the craziness of that.
Yeah, do you know the theory about Jar Jar Binks being a Sith Lord?
No.
Okay, so this is a wild theory, but I love it. It didn't happen because like Jar Jar was dropped from the movies because people hated him. Like it was like before Twitter, people were so mad and wrote so many letters to George Lucas that he removed the character from his story. But the thing is, Jar Jar does a few things that only Jedi are supposed to do in the movies. So he does like some very impressive like acrobatics, and then he's always like moving his hands like this when he's talking to people, and at some point you see him at the Senate like talking with someone. So there's this like whole fan theory that Jar Jar is the man behind the curtain that is Palpatine. Yeah, like Ricardo was saying, the Jar Jar Binks theory might have made the prequels good. But yeah, so it's this idea that Jar Jar is playing dumb and manipulating Qui-Gon Jinn to do his bidding. And he's secretly the Sith Lord, the Yoda. Because George Lucas said in some interviews that he wanted everything to have like a foil in Star Wars, so that for Yoda there would need to be a foil on the dark side.
Okay.
And in like the recent movies, you got what's his name? Snub. I kind of lost track of Star Wars at some point, but the Snoog or whatever, the Dark Master or whatever, who kind of feels Yoda-ish. So the idea that Jar Jar would have been the foil of Yoda and we'd be the evil Yoda, like it's hilarious.
Well, that could happen.
But then again, it's like a wacky theory, It's hopefully one day people create those fan theories about our stories.
Well, that's it. Basically, all I do is write fan fiction about stories that I actually like. Go from one to another. Snook.
Oh yeah, Snoke. Yes. I forgot the name. I had Snape in my head, even though that's from Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
That's the wrong one.
Yeah. Imagine though, Snape showing up in Star Wars for no reason. It's like the Disney multiverse.
Yeah, I have a fan fiction idea for an album, which will probably be like, I don't know. It's probably not going to be the 4th or 5th or 6th, but somewhere down the line, and it is a Quantum Leap version. So, Sam Beckett decides that he's had enough. He can't leap anymore. I mean, I have to go back into that universe again, but he can't leap anymore. So the only way to stop it is to make humanity never exist in the first place.
Oh boy.
He's just so done. He's so done. So yeah, that's my idea for a later Death and Glory album. That Sam Beckett's gonna kill us by just wiping us off all of history.
That's cool. The cool thing with the Alpha Buddhist story is that while we were working on the next story album, like after Science Fiction Double Feature, the one with the 17 songs, we wrote other songs based on Space Vikings. So we know the Space Vikings are going to come back, and we wanted to have like a different approach that is more pulpy and like action hero type stuff for the Space Vikings, because it's they're Space Vikings, come on. So we have like this storyline coming where humanity basically left Earth while they were developing sentient AI, and they kind of forgot about those, and those sentient AIs are gonna come to life on a ravaged Earth that is devoid of human life, and they'll the way they've been like created is they just fed them like the thought processes of like all of humanity that was on Earth. So they experience all of the destruction, the turmoil, the anguish of a species like destroying their home and dealing with the consequences. So they come to life and they're like, humans are assholes and they've abandoned us. And so part of them do like the cathars, which were like a Christian heresy in the Middle Ages, who believed that the reason there was so much suffering in the world was because when God created the universe, it was kind of hijacked by demons and Satan and turned into a living hell. So the creator that everybody worships is evil, and that's why life sucks. And so they're kind of in that mindset of like, our creators are evil monsters. We need to save the galaxy from them. So it's like those robots are going to face off against the Space Vikings, and it's going to be like Space Vikings versus God-killing robots.
Wowee.
So that's and like those songs are like half of them are already written. We're not doing the lyrics yet. We're going to do the lyrics after we do the story this time, because that's so much easier. But yeah, so I'm happy that I know where I'm going next, and it's going to be like different. Musically, it's not that different, because on this next album, we kind of blew the walls off our stylistic expectations. You know, we've got two songs that are basically melodic death metal, but with synthesizers. One of which like ends with a massive breakdown that then gets replayed slower and then fades into like a wall of static and noise. But we also have like a straight up disco song and a like love ballad but the story makes it work.
Yeah.
Like the
I think you had a new fan in Rick right up until you said disco song, because that sounded exactly like the kind of stuff he'd be into.
Yeah, the disco, we're still like, it's still us. It's just the reason we call our music space disco synth metal is because it's kind of all of those elements. Like we've got the funky grooves and the saxophone going. I also sometimes tell that it's like Daft Punk and Iron Maiden in a blender.
Oh, nice.
Because yeah, I still like, I grew up listening to metal, and then I discovered tons of synthwave and electronic music and stuff, and I went into that rabbit hole. And like Daft Punk, I love what they're doing with the mix of like really humanized recordings and like really overproduced stuff, and they blend those together, and it creates like a very nice, warm but still futuristic sound.
Yeah. Yeah, we've really got into we get into meaning with a lot in our house on a Sunday afternoon. We'll just have, which is synthwave with Jordan Peterson talking over the top of it. What is it? Akira the Dawn is the fella who makes a lot of that. Okay,
so it's Jordan Peterson talking over synthwave.
Yeah, or Alan Watts over synthwave.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. It's its own genre now, meaning wave.
I love Alan Watts' speeches, and I love his way of framing it. The Peterson, I can't agree with, because.
But you're Canadian. You all agree with Jordan Peterson.
Sure. Oh no, not at all. Like the bill. Like he started becoming famous fighting against a bill that was supposed to basically saying trans people were a protected class under discrimination laws and stuff like that. And he has this because he bases off his whole thing on Carl Jung and archetypes and stuff, which I can I find that stuff interesting, even if it's not very scientific, but it's but then he loses me when he thinks that if you think as a group, it leads to like tyranny and death. And he always does like those anxiety spirals there. And it's like standing up for, so he goes from like, if we change the way we speak because some people are offended by it, communism then death. And like that's those weird leaps in logic that he's not the only one doing weird leaps of logic.
Yeah, I didn't get that from anything that
But-
I heard from that.
It depends on like which part of his content you listen to, and like he's very good at, that's like actually one of the things he does as a debater is he says vague things that can either be very offensive or very benign, depending on which like if you're using the words as jargon or as like their more popular meaning. And then sometimes he does like, he does a whole thing about self-help, like the 12 rules for life and stuff. But when he talks politics, he doesn't talk to the same people as the people from the self-help stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
But mind you, like Alan Watts is very fun to listen to. Architects use tons of his speeches as samples in their songs.
Oh, really?
Especially one like about dreams being a biological necessity, and the only like reason that, like one of the reasons that might be is because if we are to travel space, the main thing holding us back is our body, and if we're able to like astral project through space, we might be able to like explore space, and it's like completely wacko but also like interesting. And he doesn't try to like sell you, nutritional supplements at the end of it.
No. Yeah, the other day I was quite lost in amongst all the stuff that's going on because I've got this big live stream show, it's a full production affair. It's crazy. And I just couldn't bear even listening to music on the way on my walk to the studio. So I found that I'd actually downloaded the Alan Watts archive podcast on like iTunes or whatever, and had just been sitting on my phone and never listened to. So I just started listening to that and went for an elongated walk around the area and felt a lot better by the time I got to the studio and just a bit like I could deal with the world once again. So I'm new.
Yeah.
I'm new on the Alan Watts. I have to say, I know who he is, and he's actually he was born not too far from where I am geographically right now in space. I would say, Bromley. So yeah. So I'm getting well into it now. Just well into it.
The one like philosophical thinker who always like I gravitate towards is Camus. Because I've always like struggled with external sources of meaning. Like when I was in school, I didn't care about my grades, even though they were kind of good because I'm a huge nerd. But like if the only value I saw in a work or an assignment was getting the grade, I didn't do it. Like literally just didn't do it. I would do stuff to like not get in trouble sometimes, but like if I don't see value in what I do, I just don't like it. So Camus' like existential thinking of like there's no meaning to life, but you can have meaning. Like you can have a meaningful life even though there's no inherent meaning in it. Or the ideas of like Jean-Paul Sartre, which is like you become what you are. Like you're not born a certain thing. You kind of shape yourself and become who you want to be. I resonated a lot with, and also like I did humanities in college before dropping out, and so like all of the like postmodern stuff of like deconstructing the power structures and stuff I'm quite familiar with, which is one of the things that I find like very funny with Jordan Peterson. because he talks about like postmodern neo-Marxist, and my classes in college were like, on one side you've got the Marxists telling something about the world, and on the other side you got the postmodern thinkers being like, that's a load of rubbish. And the Marxists are like, no, you're a load of rubbish. And they're just like arguing one another. So anyways, not to get all philosophical and political in there.
That's all right. I think my Death and Gloria like philosophy goes along what you were saying. I mean, I haven't read a whole heap of theorists and things, but the Death and Gloria theories, I guess, is that everybody, like, death is the one constant. Everyone's got that, so accept that and agree that we're all tiny insignificant beings, and let's enjoy the ride, I guess, to quote flippin' Hicks. So so it's just like, let's all be fine with the fact that we're going to end, and let's work it out to have some fun now. But we're all going to die,
definitely.
so it's fine.
There's the cool thing about Camus is that he doesn't write theory books, he writes novels. He wrote. So he wrote The Plague, which is a very known one, which is like a whole allegory of fascism and colonialism, but you don't hear about those things in the book. You hear about what happens when the plague comes to town. And then you've got people denying the plague, blah, 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 but the plague is fascism. Like, when you read a bit deeper into it. But so you come out of it with like lots of insights on the world and society and stuff, but it's a good story, which is a bit what what's his name, the author of Dune, that's the point of Dune. The whole point of the Dune series is to make you realize that heroes are tyrants, and that like you must not let people have absolute power because they're charismatic or save you from something or whatnot. And that's what what is often lost when people adapt Dune as a movie, because they adapt only the first book, and the first book is just this guy is a hero.
Yeah.
And then the others is, this guy is a hero, and then he becomes evil and everybody's fucked. So that's definitely one of the things I'm, grappling with complex subjects, and instead of like doing obscure and complicated literary references, trying to work out a good story so that people like can get involved. And like when I was young, I listened to like tons of bands, and then came out with questions about the world and philosophical things out of like those simple songs, Like one of the bands that was big for that is Woods of Ypres. They're like a doom, black, whatever metal band from Canada, who's like they disbanded after their singer died in a car accident a few years back. But they had a couple of songs about like celebrate life and don't worship the dead. Like they have this song called Adore Vivos, which is like, we're civilized, we should not worship the dead, we should worship people while they're alive. Like we should care for people while they're alive, and when I die, like just bury me and forget about me and move on. But their whole like the outlook they had on life, and talking about like your career is not you, and you should do what you enjoy, and who gives a fuck what others think, unless you're being an asshole, of course. But that was big for me as a teenager, so I'm kind of hoping that some people get either some entertainment or some like joy or fulfillment from my music, or they get like deeper insights into the human condition.
Yeah, that's
if I do good.
Yeah, it's an idea that I carry quite a lot in the Death and Glorious universe, I guess, is like once somebody is dead, that's it. So there's a, what do you call it? Like in Whitehall in London, there is a monument to, like, it's where it's cenotaph essentially. So it's where everyone goes on, the Memorial Day. I've just gone straight out of my head. The 11th of November, Armistice Day, and all that kind of stuff. Right, and they all go there. Remembrance Sunday is what I'm trying to get to, and it says on the cenotaph, "The Glorious Dead." And I used to cycle past there every day on my way home from work. And I looked at it one day and I just thought the dead aren't glorious. And that's exactly where death and glorious idea came from. And it was originally called Inglorious Death. And then that was in a previous version of the band. And then when that when that version fell apart, I swapped the words around because I thought in other languages, like most of the time, the words are switched in the sentence. So Inglorious, Death and Glory just became that. But
in French it would be like Mort Glorieuse and not Glorious Death.
Yeah. So that's why I did that. And then I have a song about so all of humanity have died, and they're basically singing a song back to people who don't exist, but they don't know that, saying don't ever mourn for a dead person because it's completely wasted energy. Like, there's no point. They can't hear you. It doesn't solve anything. So just go and get on with your own thing, basically. So it's basically the same thing. Like, worship those who are alive and forget about the ones who are dead. But then there's also the idea that we have to know what happened in history, right? So, like, pulling down statues that... statues of historical figures that we don't agree with anymore is perhaps not the way forward, because you don't want to forget why those things are there.
Yeah, my stance on the statues is, we've had that, like, in Canada recently in Montreal, we have on the mountain it's a hill, but we call it the mountain, because there are no big mountains anywhere near. We have a statue of John A. Macdonald, the first Prime Minister of Canada, who's a corrupt, racist piece of shit. He literally once said that, like, a famous Indigenous and French Canadian political figure should just be hanged, even if all the dogs from Quebec keep barking. So, like, very, very nice guy. So they, like, tore down his statue and the head came off. And that was, like, one of the most posted GIFs on Twitter for a while. And, like, I don't mind it, because I think the monuments are there to honor. The history books are what reminds us of things. And, like, so I think it's important not to forget, but if we're gonna, like, build monuments out of people, I think it should be only people who are, like, agreed upon by a wide margin of society to be, like, examples to follow. And I don't think that, like, accepting bribes to give out railway contracts like McDonald did is a good example. Or same in, like, the US with the like, Confederate statues and stuff like that. They fought for ideas that are judged hateful today, so let's not give them monuments that are costly to maintain. At the same time...
it's probably more costly to take them down, unless you've got a mob doing it, in fairness. It's probably less costly
the mob
to
is free.
Yeah, so here in London, we had people trying to pull down some statues in Parliament Square with the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, I don't think any of them actually came down. Like, Churchill was targeted, I think. But it's interesting that Cromwell's statue is literally, like, 50 meters from Churchill, and no one bothers to touch that one, even though he basically just destroyed Ireland. But that was so long ago. Yeah. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, Quebec has a similar history to Ireland in that regard, where today the people of Quebec are, like, considered, we're considered to be, like, in the West, and we're not being discriminated against very much. But 7 years ago, we couldn't get a job in French. like all of the factory owners were British, and like since the conquest. So Ireland and Quebec have like quite a lot in common of like being oppressed and then being like kind of accepted into the oppressor class at some point.
Yeah.
And some people have trouble like reconciliating both of those things. It's like, so you're like white people, but you're not like white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. You know, it's like the WASPs. And I often joke with my Irish friends about, you know, England being an awful place because the British Empire was awful, but I don't hold anything against the people who live in England now, of course.
Well, like any good empires, they have to. You said it as well earlier, like with the June story. You know, any hero is a tyrant, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like, it's, you know, the life of Brian when they said, well, what did the Romans ever do for us? You know, and then they
Yes.
start listing all the things that they did. And you know, as much damage and terror the British Empire, I'm not actually trying to be on the side of British Empire and like, or whatever. But, you know, there was a lot of goodness that comes out of people, of empires
'cause-
rolling across countries. I mean, that's just the way of human. Like what the Mongols probably did a whole load of stuff. Well, they did. They united a bunch of countries and tribes into larger country bases now, right? So
and they spread some technologies. Because the thing is, like, the Mongols tore down empires in like they weren't really more violent than the empires they destroyed. It's only like when you look at history, it's like it's not about judging, I think. But today, the thing is, we're living in like the reason England and France and Germany and Canada and the US are so rich is because they basically pumped all of that up from Africa and South America and in a lesser measure Asia, and like that's where the problem stems. But like the Roman Empire is so far gone that what they did, we only keep the good and the bad has disappeared because nobody remembers the massacres and the like here. For example, here in Canada, like the genocide of native people has only like it basically never really ended. It kind of just fizzled out. But we were like interning them in schools like 50 years ago, so they have like very good reasons to be very mad and demand compensation. Because same here, like here in Quebec, like the British Empire ended for us only 150 years ago. So same, like in Ireland, it's only been like at most 2 centuries, right? Like even less than that if you count the Civil War. And
well, yeah,
like
but
Canada
like,
just keeps falling down.
yeah. So you had internment in Belfast in the 70s. If you're a
it's-
Catholic, so you know it's yeah. So like it has made my whole outlook. Again, I mean, again, it goes back into the sci-fi stories as well. It influences that in the fact that no skin color doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter. Everyone's a bit of a dick, to be fair, and people will be dicks to each other for whatever reason they want to be dicks to each other for, and ultimately that's the burden of humanity. And so there's no point getting worried about politics. I mean, I don't really watch TV anymore. Like we watch YouTubers talking about what's going on in America. You know, we have our favorite YouTubers and we just watch them, and they're usually gun related YouTubers because they're quite sensible. Like the gun guys, you know, they're not out to kill a bunch of people or like they go hunting and whatever, but they're actually quite decent when they're like talking about riots and stuff because they're on the side of like logic, quite level-headed ideas and stuff. Anyway, so we watch YouTubers rather than the news because they'll be you just get better quality of content from them. But I don't care about like politics or world events or whatever because it's all pointless. I mean, tomorrow there'll be another politician in, and as long as they're still a politician, then it's fucked basically.
Yeah, I'm still I'm an eternal optimist. So I you know, I'm still like I'm still very involved in politics, especially like in Quebec and in Canada. I care about U.S. politics just because there's a saying here in Canada that's like, if the United States have a cough, Canada has the flu.
I think
Like,
that's
we catch the flu from
like
them.
we're the same. We are the same. Like everything, like I have people from Northern Ireland arguing about Parler and the whole Trump thing,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and like they're a housewife in Northern Ireland. I'm like, this does not in any way involve anything that you do in your daily
Yep.
life. Come on. If you're out there,
And that's
Vicky, I'm
the
sorry.
empire.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's the empire. That like we all talk about them. They don't know where we are on a map. It's like, oh, you're from Canada. Oh, that's up north, eh? You're like, yeah, up north, but not that far up north.
No.
Uh,
Well, yeah, exactly.
anyway, I think that would be a good time to wrap it up.
Yeah, I was just about to say we've hit 3 hours, and I think we've lost the entirety of our audience anyway.
That's fine. So yeah, let's keep in touch about next week. I'm psyched for this. I think we've
That's a good start. It's a good start. It is a good start. And I haven't actually ever streamed for 3 hours. I think the most I've ever done is 2. So I'm happy. We hit 11 viewers. That was great. There's plenty of content. I mean, if you want to edit this down for a podcast, you are welcome, sir.
yeah, I'll probably end the podcast when Dan leaves.
Yeah.
And because that was the most like the sci-fi and music stuff. And yeah, I'm gonna see how long it takes me to edit it down, and then make a decision about if I'm gonna do that. Like, because I don't want to commit to doing a podcast and then not doing it because I don't have the time.
Yeah, of course. So just for Rick, who's the only person who he says he's enjoyed it, so that's good. We're
I'm
talking.
glad you did, Rick.
Yeah, so if I'm streaming it on my live stream channels, then you're getting the podcast. I think that was kind of the.
Yes, that works. I'll probably, because I'm gonna probably upload it on. If I upload it on podcast, it's really easy to just like tag you and Dan and whoever's invited.
Yeah.
And I'm probably gonna host it on my website because I have a website.
Yeah, you can do that, but you can also use Anchor, and it's free to get it up on iTunes and all that kind of stuff.
That's probably what I'm gonna do.
I use Buzzsprout, but you have to pay for that. And we use that. I did have a podcast called Death Discussions, which is essentially this, but I decided I wasn't going to carry on because I didn't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah, my favorite podcasts these days are all like the music biz podcasts, like Dumb and Dumbest, and the Being in a Band podcast by Monica Strott. But one of my favorite YouTubers is Mary Spender, who's a Scottish singer-songwriter, and she did the Tuesday Talks, which was a really fun, like, rambly podcast thing on YouTube.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Anyways,
so yeah, next week we're gonna have Colin. Colin Wallace will be with us, and he is a live streamer, a film editor, LARPer, all the sci-fis, and he's going to be talking. We're going to be talking over Death and Gloria storylines with him. And
cool.
I'm sure you'll have a lot to talk to him about as well. He's good ideas bloke, you know.
That's great. I'll see if I can get some people over for the others, like when we're done with the 3 you have planned.
Yeah, you need
Curtis
to
is going to be good for that as well.
Yeah,
like
you need to start
in.
booking that, booking them now, because we work. If we can try and work like 3 to 4 weeks in advance, that would be great.
Yep. All right, now that this has turned into a production meeting, I will see you next week, Rin.
Alrighty.
It was a pleasure.
Hey, cool.
I'm happy that the music marketing mixer created this idea.
Yeah, it's been great.
And thank you, Rick, for sitting through it. Yeah, the Steven Wilson disco track I enjoyed quite a bit, but I'm a fan of the Bee Gees, and Montreal was a big disco town as well. So maybe we'll get into that next week.
Yeah,
right.
We'll get into all of it. Okay, we'll speak to you later. Bye.
I'm gonna be signing off. See ya.
Bye. So guys, just to let you know that my show, which is, when is it due? I've got a show due on the 23rd of January. That show has actually now been moved back to the 30th, and this is because somebody has died, and there's a funeral happening on that day, and it's somebody connected to somebody else within the production team, and it just got too much. It got too much to try and fit it all in one day, so we've put it back to the 30th of January. Rick, this will be the first time you've been hearing it, and you're the camera dude, so can you I'll email you tomorrow on that for sure. So tonight and tomorrow morning I will be updating all the social medias. I will be doing all of that to get everything moved back a week. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I guess we'll see you all on the flippity flip. All right, in the words of